Hey, this is the Crisis of a Reader, and I came back with another video. I decided to do this on reading, but also outlines and freeform writing. So with reading, it is absolutely important that you read and read a lot. And you've heard this over and over again, but I want to go a little bit more in depth with reading. So with reading, not only do you understand grammar, where to put periods and commas and semicolons and all that, but you also start to understand structure. You'll start to pick up dialogue versus description. You'll start to pick up info dumps and what you like, what you don't like. And this really starts to get you to understand what kind of tone you want for your story and what kind of voice you have. So when writers start to talk about voices and tones and all of that stuff, that's what they're talking about. The more you read, the more you start to pick up all of these different things when you are actually developing your own sense of style, developing your own tone, and even like with little things like where to put a period, where to put a comma, your kinds of descriptions, that really shows through the more and more you read. So another big thing that you start to understand and learn as you're reading more and more are the cliches within your own genre. And it's not necessarily bad to have a cliche, but the more you read and the more you understand a specific cliche, like the prince going to save a princess, you can understand how to turn it on its head and say, oh, a princess is actually going to save this farm boy, or a farm girl is going to save this princess. So then the story starts to get unique and different, with different plot holes, with different plot devices, with different problems that these two characters can face in their world. So when you read more, you start to pick up on those cliches and you start to be able to change them in order to create something new. This comes to marketability. So with marketability and understanding cliches, you start to understand where you fit in your genre. You can have some fantasy elements in sci-fi, but you can't go like science fiction, fantasy, chick lit with cowboys in it or for some reason. You don't want to do that. You want to be able to market yourself in science fiction or fantasy or chick lit or westerns, what have you. Another big thing is, again, knowing your genre just because of marketability, because of cliches, because of tone and style. Now, this is to say you don't need to sound like George R. R. Martin to write fantasy. You don't need to sound like Herbie Brennan or any of the other people that I can think of right off the top of my head. You're going to develop your own tone and style that people actually start to recognize as you come out with more and more books and as you write more and more and as you read more and more. So the last thing is actually learning the technique. So I already kind of brushed up a little bit on this, where you start to understand where to place periods, where to place commas, but you're also starting to understand your own pattern. What you want to be careful of is, the simplest thing is, let's say I become obsessed with opaque. She had opaque skin. There was an opaque weird mirror for some reason. There was an opaque wall. And I just keep using that word over and over and over again to describe those things. Well, your reader is going to notice that. So that's something you want to be wary of when you start writing, is understanding that you may fall into those sort of pitfalls when you are finding your own voice, your own tone, your own sort of style. Now I'm going to be moving on to outlining and freeform writing. So these are two very different styles of writing. Outline, you are selling your soul, trying to get all of this stuff down before you actually write, which is what I did. And freeform writing, or flying by the seat of your pants, is where you are just hoping for the best as you write it. I've done both, and I kind of want to go over like some of the things you want to be wary of, because with outlining, I didn't complete a book, even though I've been writing since 6th grade, till I was about 23. And that's bad, because all I could think about was outlining. All I could think about was how I'm going to pace this, what kind of characters, all of their traits. I had interviews with characters, but I could not finish a novel. So one of the things that I ended up doing was forcing myself to do by the seat of my pants, or freeform writing. And it ended up working out for me fine, but I did notice a couple things that I did to make sure that I didn't fall into, oh my God, I don't know where this story is going. So one of the very first things you want to do when you outline is you don't want to elaborate too much. You want it to be very brisk, very quick. There are some complexities you may have in your novel. It's fine to explain them. So let's say you want to jot down your magic system real quick. That's fine. Jot down the rules, jot down the magic system, move on. Because you're just gonna get trapped. You're gonna wanna detail everything. And in the end, you're just not gonna have a novel until like 20, 25, and then you're lost. That comes to my next point, which is you can just focus on the 3 elements like movies do. You can focus on the inciting incident, the climax, and the resolution. You can just write those 3 things down and you know where you're going with your book. You don't need to outline anymore. I prefer to be more specific, so my outlines is chapter by chapter, but again, completely brief. So when you're a pantser, you're flying by the seat of your pants, you're hoping for the best, you get lost, you have no idea what to do, and you're on page 100. So unfortunately, some writing advice that I got is once you get to that point, you may not be ready to finish that book. It may not be going anywhere, so it's best to just put it down. I would suggest walking away from it first before completely quitting it. Maybe you're just having an off day, maybe you're depressed. Any number of those things, just set it down, take a deep breath, listen to music, do something else. Do not dwell on the story because you may be going for a walk and suddenly the idea pops into your head and you need to write it next. So I wouldn't just give it up, but be aware that it may be done. It may not be the novel that you actually finish. The next one is thinking about the parts of your story. So you don't want to end up getting completely lost. You don't want to keep writing, and you're on page like 79,000 and the book is still going, which is really impressive. Kudos to you if you can do that. But you want to be able to have a beginning in mind, have a middle in mind, have the end in mind. So this is kind of going back to the inciting incident, the climax, the resolution. I would suggest having one of those 3 or just knowing what part you want to write next. That way you can keep going. And it's a good exercise to kind of get like, I love daydreaming. I love listening to music and daydreaming. Just to be able to know what happens next in my story. So I'm kind of a hybrid when it comes to this. So again, you want to step away, give it a break. You want to kind of listen to music, one that fits the style of the scene you would like to write next. Or if you don't know, just have a playlist. Think of really inspiring songs that can help you jog that daydream in you so that you do know what to write next. You could always force it out and see where it goes. I have done this before where, you know, you're writing 1,000 words a day, you have a regiment. You know, there's nothing wrong with all of these different things that I've learned. I just prefer to do it as I go along and see what sticks best in that day. That is the best I can offer. Listen to music and, you know, when you set it down, I would suggest reading another book, listening to music, of course, setting the mood, or even playing video games. Anything to jog your creativity, anything to make you look at something at a different angle. Maybe something new pops into your head as you're watching something else. Anything. You just want to keep going. You don't want to give up. That is the biggest thing that I can help you with, is keep reading and do not give up no matter what. So that is the advice that I have for you. I do want to say that a lot of you commented on my editing skills, but it is not my editing skills. I actually forgot to mention this in a video, but I have a wonderful husband who's helping me edit all of this stuff and helping me learn how to like set up my lights, set up the camera, which I did by myself today, and he's helping me edit. So it's really cool of him to actually take the time to do that. So I want to thank him for that. And that's all I have to say for today. Thanks. This was The Crisis of a Reader.